Good evening, everybody. This is K0MLG Kilowatt 0 Mike Lima Golf, Marty, near Wellington. I will be net control operator for tonight's TechNet. Let me silence my phone. The sidebar knob button is not working properly, but we got that taken care of. The purpose of the net is to enlighten amateur radio operators on topics of technical nature, and they really don't have to be too technical, but any questions you may have, no question is dumb. Some answers can be questionable, but you can take all that with a grain of salt. How about that? Before the net starts, is there any priority or emergency traffic? Hearing none, if you are listening to this and have an emergency, say break, break, break. I will suspend the net and take your traffic at that time. All licensed amateur radio operators are encouraged to check into the net. Club membership is encouraged but never required. Speaking of club membership, we are going to be needing a new operator for the first week of the TechNet. I asked 2 weeks ago and got no reply, but W0BNC has taken on some new stuff, and it's interfering with his TechNet duties on his Monday night, well, any Monday night, really. So if anybody's interested in net control, please let me know today, or I suppose you could email Joe. It'd be the easiest thing just to let me know if you're interested. It's kind of fun, and it prepares you for being able to handle emergency traffic when it arises. Not if, it's when one of these days you're going to need it, kind of like CPR. When checking into the net, please give your call signs slowly, first alphabetically, and then again using the standard ITU phonetics, along with your name and location. And let's see, 2 weeks ago I asked for, I think, your temp. I am going to ask if anybody has been taking advantage of the bands being open. I worked Europe for a better part of the morning and early afternoon. It was just a ton of fun. So if you've been doing any HF recently, let me know when you check in, please. I will now take check-ins from Echolink. And when it comes around to your turn, please let me know if you have a topic, a question, or a comment for the net. Anybody on Echolink tonight wanting to check into tonight's edition of the NCARC TechNet? That's a big no. I will now take check-ins alpha through Mike. Go a little bit slow, and we'll get through this. Take check-ins now. Go ahead.
Whiskey Alpha 7, Echo Mike, Ed and Erie. I've worked a lot in Oceana.
WW8L, Whiskey 8 Lima, Tim, South of Loveland, doing a normal amount of HF.
Boy, if we don't get some more people to come in, that's going to be a quick night. WA7, Echo Mike, what's your name?
Ed, as in Edward.
Copy that, Ed. Got you in there also, Tim. Anybody else for tonight's TechNet? Go ahead.
Whiskey 0 Lima Echo India, W0 LEI, Chad in Stout, and worked Finland 2 contacts, and Wales 1 contact.
Kilo 3 Sierra Alpha Delta, George, mobile. No HF, no problems.
All right, well, hold up there. Got you in there, Kent. I know you've been having a lot of fun with FT8. George, mobile, no HF, no worries. And Chad, Stout, Finland and Wales. Yeah, I talked to Wales myself today. Might have even been the same guy. It was Mike Whiskey 0 Zulu Kilo. Is that who you talked to, Chad?
Negative. I can't recall. This was a couple of days ago. But yeah, we had a nice contact. It wasn't just a here's DX, yak, and go. We sat and talked for a while. I enjoyed it.
I talked to a guy in Northern Ireland today, not far from the ocean, for probably 20 minutes this afternoon. It was just a ton of fun. All right, let's continue on. Any more takers for tonight's TechNet? Please call now.
Alpha Echo Zero, Charlie Foxtrot, AE0CF, Ben, Fort Collins. Haven't touched HF in a while.
Kilo Foxtrot 0, Golf Quebec, India, docking pairs, no HF.
AD0EXV, Kilo Delta 0, Echo X-Ray Victor, Brian Greeley, no HF today.
All right, going to hold up there. Got you in there, Ben, and Doc and Brian. No HF for those three guys. Not a big deal. I just happen to have time today. All right, let's go for some more check-ins for tonight's TechNet. Go ahead.
This is Alpha Echo 3, Tango Bravo, AE3 TV, Tom in Wellington. No HF lately, too busy with flight school.
This is KB0YDN, Kilo Bravo 0, Yankee Delta November, Eric, mobile in Loveland, or Longmont. The only HF I've done this weekend, or this week, has been participation in the Aries EnvisNet. And other than that, I have been noticing, and just kind of regretting that when I'm noticing I can't use it.
This is K0AZA, Kilo Zero Alpha Zulu Alpha, Ron at Fort Collins, no HF. I do have a comment and a question.
All right, hold up there. Got you in there, Tom. No HF. You know you're going to have a new call sign when you get that pilot's license. TB, I can't think of anything that even comes close to being plain something. Yeah, you need to have like 83CP Colorado Pilot or something like that. Eric, got you in there. That Aries Net's a good one. I'm still trying to figure out my noise level on 80. And Ron, no HF with a comment and a question. Who else wants to check in for tonight's TechNet? This is Kilowatt Zero, Mike Lima Golf. My name is Marty near Wellington. Go ahead.
Kilo Echo Zero, Romeo X-Ray Foxtrot, Randy in Fort Collins.
This is November 0, November Yankee, Bart, Mobile, Highway 66. I have a comment and an announcement, and no HF for me this week.
This is Kilo Foxtrot 0, Bravo Tango Bravo, Pete in Tinmouth. No HF in the last 3 days, but I'm curious to hear what's going on. I'm seeing a lot of noise. I'm at 8,000 feet, and I'm seeing a lot of noise. I'm guessing solar storm today.
All right, we'll hold up there. There was a double between Pete and the guy at 8,000 feet. 8,000 feet, go ahead.
Roger, it's Kilo Mike 6, Victor Alpha Yankee, Steve in Sedalia, and I was saying I'm noticing a lot of noise up here where normally I don't. I'm guessing do we have a solar storm today? Is it worth? Well, I guess the daylight's going away, so we're not going to be able to play on 10 through 15, I'm guessing, anymore, but is there a solar storm today?
Not that I know of. I mean, I've been talking all over the United States and Europe and Mexico today, so on 10, 15, and 20. So I'm going to say no. I don't know what your situation is up there, but it's kind of crazy. I'll hold up there. Pete, we got you. Bart, and Randy is a Kilo Echo Zero Radio. Let me see. Radio. Where'd I come up with that? Oh, listening to police scanners. Romeo Tango Fox. Romeo Tango Fox. Is that you, Randy?
Now you got me confused. Let's see. Romeo X-Ray Foxtrot. Yeah, there you go. RXF. And I think I dabbled in a little FT8 in the last few days, That's about it.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I got to confuse somebody today because I've been confused. I stay confused. All right, we got everybody in there. Steve, Pete, Bart, and Randy. Who else wants to check in for tonight's TechNet? Go ahead.
KA2AZ, Kilo Alpha 2 Alpha United Zulu, Paul and Milliken. And yes, I've been doing HF every day.
Kilo 0 Delta Bravo Echo, Debbie in Loveland, Mobile, and I have one announcement.
All right, hold up there. Paul, is it Kilo Alpha 2 Alpha Uniform Zulu? All right. And Debbie, K0DB, got you in there with your announcement. Anybody else for tonight's TechNet? Go ahead.
K0ARD, Kilo 0 Alpha Romeo Delta, Ann in Fort Collins.
All right. Anybody else before we carry on?
This is K5SGC, Kilo 5 Sierra Golf Charlie, Dave in Fort Collins, doing a little FT8.
November 0, Bravo November Kilo, Rick in the port, no HF.
KE0TMB, Kilo Echo 0 Tango Mike Bravo, Matt in Loveland, and no HF.
Yeah, anybody else? Okay, I'd like to recognize Kilo 5 Sierra Golf Charlie Dave, No Bunk Rick, and K0TMB Tango Mike Bravo. Is that right, Matt?
Correct.
Okay, sounds good. Well, my subject is grounding. We've talked about this before. I came across an article today about radio grounds. And if you can write this website down, you can go in and read it yourself. Give you a minute to grab a pencil and a paper, but basically he's talking about short grounds, which we all know, but I actually right now I'm going to my battery for the ground, but it's a short ground because I've got a power supply or a power distribution block in the cab of my pickup and a fairly short wire going to the battery. But I'm going to change it and go to a chassis ground on 15, 12, 10 meters. I'm getting into the speaker on my AZ400, and I've also got a Z-Flash, which a Z-Flash is when you see a police car or emergency vehicle with wig-wag tail or headlights and their tail lights are flashing, all that stuff, it's a Z-Flash. And I have one of those on my pickup, and it gets into that. And it doesn't quite activate it, but it makes there's a red light and a green light. Green light is when the Z-Flash is turned on, and it gets into that a little bit. I've got all my antennas grounded. I know they are, so I'm gonna go to a chassis ground. Anyway, that website is www.whiskey8 Juliet India WAJI.com, and he goes into proper grounding in his opinion. He talks about your negative lead shouldn't have a fuse, and Motorola recommends no fuse in the black wire of your radios. So that's his opinion. I'm going to redo my ground, and I know this has been talked about before. Anybody have any comments or musings on grounding your radios in your vehicle?
N0EMP with a check-in and some info.
Got you in there, Greg.
If your negative lead to your radio is connected at the battery terminal itself, it has to be fused, because if your main ground breaks, when you turn the key to start your engine, your battery will ground through your radio and try to pass all the starter motor current through your radio, and you don't want that to happen. That is why when we buy new mobile radios, they have fuses on the black and red wires. If you connect your negative anywhere else on the chassis, even near the battery but on the chassis of the vehicle, that type of failure mode cannot happen, and you do not need a fuse on the black wire at that point, and 0 EMP.
Okay, that's good information, Greg. And I knew somebody would have something to say about it. I never thought about that. Also, if to add to that, and you guys can all read this, and I recommend reading it. It's just good information to have. Do with it what you want to, but it's good reading. That scenario that Greg just said, when you have your black wire to your battery, and let's just say your main ground fails. The main ground he's talking about, from your battery to your motor block to your frame, that whole ground right there. Having that fail in newer vehicles is probably slim to none around here because we don't have the salt problems that the East Coast has. But if that fails, and if you don't have that fused, what's going to happen is your radio is going to take ground from whatever source it can. And then you end up frying your circuit board or whatever because it can't handle that current. So, like I said, I'm going to move my ground to a chassis ground, and hopefully I can eliminate my my interference. Anybody else have any thoughts on grounding? Go ahead.
WW8L.
Go ahead, Tim.
I've got 2 HF mobile installations, and the same held true for both of them. The more, not just grounding I did, but bonding I did, the less interference I would have. So I've got ground straps that go from, of course, the base of the antenna to the body, but then I go from the body panel to the frame, exhaust to the frame, each door to the body panel, the hood to the main body. So the larger and more contiguous I can make that image plane, the less interference I got across the board.
To be charged, essentially lowering the output of the alternator, so you're not necessarily going to see a 13.8 volt charge on your battery. And the net of that is there's some electronics between the battery's negative terminal and the rest of the negative side of the car, and that's where the battery management system does its sensing about when the battery is well enough charged that they can lower the alternator output. So read your owner's manual on your car, or do some other reading on the internet about BMS before you connect up to the negative side of the battery, WA7EM.
Okay, we had some double traffic. We had Tim stepped on you, and I am just going to replay this and have Tim go ahead, and then Ed, I will call on you. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, sorry about that. I thought I'd been recognized there. I said on my 2 mobile HF stations, in addition to grounding, I did a lot of bonding, which dramatically reduced interference. So I bonded the base of the antenna to the body. I bonded the body to the frame in multiple places, the doors to the frame, exhaust system to frame, etc. And the more bond straps I added, the lower the interference got, the lower noise level got into the radio, and the less the radio got into other things. Back to that.
This is Hazer MLG Net Control for this week's TechNet. Right, Tim. So hold on, Ed. We're gonna talk about this for a bit. Did you have interference on the higher bands?
Higher HF bands, you mean, or like 2 meter 440?
No, 15, 12, and 10. When you talked on those bands, did you get like I get? For the lack of a better word, feedback through the speaker on my VHF UHF radio. You can hear it coming through the speaker. Did you have that problem before you started doing all the bonding?
I don't remember which HF bands were causing the problems, but I had the radios getting into the audio on one of my FTM radios, one of my 2-meter 440 radios, and then also in one of the control heads it was changing channels and that kind of stuff on the VHF, UHF, and so it eliminated that problem, and it also reduced the noise on receive on the HF side that was coming from the vehicle.
Copy that. I'm pretty good on noise floor or noise level. Of course, my HF setup is in a 2015 Ford with Power Stroke. I was having a little bit of whine before I started adding straps. So I've got ground straps everywhere. Not quite as many as you do, but I'll have to add some more. My question is, how far is your HF antenna from their VHF and UHF antenna?
One vehicle about 2.5 feet, and the other one's a little farther, probably 4 or 5 feet.
Okay. My ATIS 120 is less than a foot from my UHF VHF, and that could cause problems, but it shouldn't. Those bands are so far apart. All right, that answers that question. Anybody have any questions on bonding for Tim? All right, I think I heard stand by, Ed. I hate to put you off. There was a November 0 station that just keyed up. Go ahead.
I apologize. Do we wait till the repeater drops? Do we wait till the repeater drops, or do we wait till the courtesy tone goes?
Well, it's a directed net, and everything goes through net control. Moi. And so when you have, if you have a comment, just say comment or throw your call sign out, and then I will get to you as soon as we finish up with all the other people, unless you have an emergency. And at that point in time, say break, break, break. Is everything good on your end?
Yeah, QSL. I was going to just ask Tim that question, but I didn't want to jump in early because I know there's a couple of repeaters tied up there. Tim, if I can request access to Tim there, but I'll wait till the end of the net to ask him them questions. Over.
Okay. Are you going to be around available after the net, Tim?
Yeah, I should be. I'm going to step out for just a minute here, but I'll be back in 2 or 3.
That station for Tim. What's your call sign?
Okay, it's Larry, Lincoln Adam Robert. Robert Young is the name, and the call is November 0, Yankee Bravo, visitor from Wisconsin.
November 0, Yankee Bravo, Larry from Cheese Country. All right, well, welcome to Colorado. You picked a good time to be here. Tim's call is WW8L, Whiskey Whiskey 8 Lima. So as soon as net's over, you guys can carry on and have that conversation. Ed, go ahead with your comment on the BSM, and I didn't get to that because it's in that article, but maybe not everybody's going to read that, and that's also some good information on why you should go to a chassis ground instead of your battery. Go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, WA7EM, sorry I doubled. I should have listened better. Anyhow, modern vehicles, I don't know when they cut in, last 5 years or so, and I have a Ford, and there's something called a battery management system. It's yet another thing that they're trying to improve gas mileage by lowering the energy consumption by the alternator. And what this does is sense when the battery is adequately charged and lower the output of the alternator. So you're not necessarily going to see 13.8 volts coming out of the alternator as you're cruising down the highway. The BMS does its sensing as a negative lead of the battery. Why there, I don't know. But you'll find a little box between the big black cable and the negative on the battery. And that's where the BMS sensing is going on. And if you read your owner's manual in your vehicle, it says don't hook up directly to the negative lead on the battery, but hook up on the cable side. And so that may alter some of the traditional ways hams hook up their radios. And that's about the extent of my knowledge. WA7EM.
No problem for Dublin, Ed. We're amateurs, and even professionals have problems communicating sometimes. That's not a big deal. Yeah, it's a problem if you go to the battery for negative, and it sounds to me if we keep our grounds short, use star washers, and go to a good known ground to the chassis, and maybe even like Tim, add a strap from the chassis to the engine block or something like that to make sure you always have that good positive ground. And also, in an older vehicle, well, heck, even newer vehicles, things come loose. Every now and then, might want to go and check your ground cables, your factory ground cables, out of the on your vehicles. Just if you start noticing noise, most of the time on a vehicle, or like say you're pulling a travel trailer and your lights aren't working, 9 times out of 10 it's ground. Noise from radio, it's ground. Ground. That's why a lot of people don't like HF mobile, because they don't take the time to ground. And it does take time. It takes hours to run ground strap, clean things, clean surfaces. I use dielectric grease. We talked about this a few weeks ago. And it can be done. I mean, I have very good signal reports out of my mobile. I just have some noise getting into my U and V radio, so I'm going to hopefully rectify that with better grounding and additional grounding. Anybody else have any comments on grounding before we go to, I think Debbie was the first one. Any other comments on grounding? All right, this is KZRMLG, and I don't believe Debbie was the first. Bart was the first person with a comment. Go ahead, Bart. N0NYY, it's all yours.
Marty, good evening to everybody on the net. Comment and announcement. Comment on net control. I've said this many times, and I'll say it just once more, but I'll try to be brief. Net control is something that a lot of hams do, and more hams are needed. It's a great thing to learn to do, and when it's critical is not when you want to learn to do it. You don't want to go be net control when some guy's out chasing a storm, got a tornado over his head. Okay, that's a bad time to try to learn. You want to learn when there's no pressure. There's virtually no pressure on TechNet, except for the first time you do it, and then you get used to it quick. Learn to do it when it doesn't count, so when it does, you're not shaking in your boots. Item number 2, this Wednesday, lunch in Loveland. This is the Mark Clark Charlie Brown Memorial Lunch, as we have started calling it, both of whom are silent keys. Perkins in Loveland, 2222 West Eisenhower. Eisenhower is also 34. We start about 11:30. It goes for a couple hours, sometimes more, sometimes less. Mark always used to affectionately call it TechNet with lunch. We have a great time. There's years and years of experience sitting around. It's actually easier to carry on little conversations there than it is on the radio, because you can do more than one at a time. But it's a wonderful thing. Everybody is invited. You don't have to be a club member. You don't have to be a ham. You should be hungry, and you should be curious. That is this Wednesday, 11:30 a.m. N0NYY back to net. Thank you, Marty.
Yep. I agree with Bart, and I mean, I've got a full page of people that have checked in tonight. Every single one of you is capable of running TechNet. No questions asked. I mean, if I can do it, anybody can. I am not the smartest tool in the shed, let me tell you. So if after net, or right now, if you want to run net, let us know. We're a man down, and nothing bad about that. Bob just took on another responsibility that I'm not going to elaborate on, but he got back into a profession that he loves, and he's in public service, and he just doesn't have time for TechNets on Mondays at the moment. So if anybody wants to run the net, and the club board wants you to be a club member to run the net. And I can guarantee you, not everybody on my page is a club member, and I'm going to I am going to make my opinion known about that. If you want to learn to do something, you shouldn't have to be a member of a club to do it. So there you go, Joe, and the rest of the board that's listening to this. That's my opinion. I think if these people want to learn to run a TechNet, we shouldn't have to make them be a member of a club, even though it would be nice if you were a member, but it's, you can check into the net without being a member, but you can't run the net without being a member, which I think is kind of hypocrisy at its finest. Just my opinion. Anything else from you, Bart?
Nope, except I would encourage everybody to be a member of the club. The club does a lot of providing of services. Our repeaters, we are spoiled rotten with our very, very reliable repeaters, our very, very reliable tech group. Support those people, and the best way to support them is to be a member of the club. And zero in my life.
I agree. Been a member for many, 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 many years. Debbie, if you're still awake, go ahead.
Thank you, Marty. Bart did a much better job of making the announcement I had planned. So what Bart said is what I was going to say. Thank you.
Yeah, I got to thinking about this, and I know a lot of you haven't been around for as long as, well, I've only been around NCARC since '03, but we've had quite a few silent keys, and Mark and Mike were both really good friends of mine. But there's also some other people. Richard Walters, he was the past club president. He passed away a few years ago. Randy, AVV. It was K0AVV, and then he moved to Oregon, and then he changed it to W0AVV, but his property burned down up on Christ Mountain. I think maybe we should have it be a silent key ham lunch instead of just the two, because Richard and Randy both did just as much for ham radio as Mark and Randy. That's just another thought of mine to throw out there for Bart and whoever runs the lunch stuff there. Roger?
That's a very good point, and it could be in memoriam of all silent keys from the club or from the area. It's just that Charlie Brown and Mark were two that were really big on promoting the ham lunch. I think that's why it came out that way, and that's not a club function. That just came from the ham lunch itself. So a lot of these guys were just awesome, wonderful people, and if you didn't get to know them, well, get to know the hams you got around you, because there's still a mess of wonderful people out there. And they're on my way back to them.
Yep. Everybody has something to teach, and there's some really good teachers that have passed on. So anyway, that lunch is a good one. I'm going to try to make it this Wednesday. Not sure if I can, but going to try it. We've got very, very nice weather, and it'd be a good time to go break bread with your, well, not fellow hams. Like Bart said, you don't have to be a ham. If you are listening on a scanner or a ham radio and you don't have a license yet, come down and talk to us at Perkins on Wednesday. We'd be more than happy to help you get your license and get you on the air. Are there any takers to get your feet wet in running the TechNet? Ron, you're one that I absolutely know can do it. Pete, Steven, Sedalia. I mean, Sedalia, it's a long ways away. You don't have to, you could run the TechNet from there. Any takers to run the TechNet, come on back to K0MLG tonight.
AZA.
Go ahead, Ron.
K0AZA. Well, my comment was going to be I can run the TechNet. I didn't even need the fundraising pitch to talk me into it.
You better be careful. You might be running dispatch for one of the races one of these days. Well, if you want to step into the first week of the month, I will, and I know Joe's listening, or he should be. He's recording this, so I'll put your name in.
And Darren already wrangled me to run the Blue Sky this Saturday. So in for a penny, in for a pound, I guess, huh?
There you go. I appreciate it. And what I've tried to do, and there's a couple new people here, but a lot of times I try to get people to say, do you want to run the net tonight? I'll sit back and listen, and if you stumble, I'll get right in there and help you get through it. If anybody ever wants to do the net on a Monday night, on my week, now, and Bart would do the same thing, I think Ron would do the same thing, only Ron's going to be the new guy, so he's going to have to kind of get used to it. And then we also have the fourth week, which Kyle, with his work schedule, is kind of iffy. He can't always be running the TechNet. So please, if you want to learn to run a net, like Bart said, it's not if, it's when. When the stuff hits the fan, you need to be able to communicate and basically manage a small team. So it's a lot of fun, and it's great practice, and it's not hard. It's no stress whatsoever. And with that, any other comments for tonight? K0MLG.
SAD.
Good, George.
So if you want an example of how bad it can get, go ahead and throw me on the list as an alternate. I'm registered at the club as KF0NBC.
Oh, what was your original call sign, George?
Kilo Foxtrot 0, November Bravo Charlie.
Okay. We'll probably put you down in Kyle's spot because his schedule changes on the daily, it seems like. As a matter of fact, he didn't even check in tonight, so he's on duty at his job. So we'll put you down for an alternate. And I need to. Joe, if you're listening tonight, make sure you have KF0 November Bravo Charlie have his new call sign as Kilo 3 Sierra Alpha Delta, and get that in the database. Any other comments tonight? Go ahead.
SAD to NYY, what are you planning on bringing for show and tell?
And 0NYY via Echo Link for the moment. A big radio in a little car.
This will have to do a takeout. SAD, back to that.
I might bring a big pickup with a lot of radios, or I might bring a small car with a lot of horsepower. All right, guys and gals, any other comments, questions, critiques for the net tonight? Go ahead. Well, thanks, everybody, for checking in tonight. I had a lot of fun, and I did learn a lot. Greg, thanks for your explanation on the no black wire fuse needed if you go to chassis ground, although I'm not going to take the fuse out, but I am going to go to chassis ground. But I do have one more question for you, Greg. Are you still around? He got home and turned the radio off. I'm just wondering, I have a power distribution block with one ground. All radios go to that. You would think that should be 100% okay, like I'm going to change that to a chassis ground and all radios going through that ground. That shouldn't create some sort of a weird thing, should it?
I'm back. I was feeding the cat in the other room, so let me make sure I got this. What is the power block grounded to?
Well, it's not. It's plastic. It's just screwed into the plastic on my Ford, and then the ground that feeds that comes from my battery, which I said I'm going to change that and go to a chassis ground. But I have two VHF UHFs and an HF radio all going to the power distribution block, all sharing the same ground. That shouldn't be a problem, should it?
Can you put your power distribution block on a metal part of your frame and do a short ground strap right to the chassis from the power distribution block?
Well, the power distribution block's all plastic. I mean, there's no way to get ground from the distribution block to a ground. There's no way to ground it.
So how does it distribute power if it's all plastic?
Okay, it's Anderson power pole distribution block is what it is.
Yes, it's got a red power lead and a black power lead feeding it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, attach the black power lead to the chassis. There's your chassis ground. And if you can mount that block where that black lead is a short run, do that. If you can't, then run it wherever you have to. But yeah, that black lead of the distribution block is your ground.
Right, I was just overthinking it. You know, too many radios into one thing. Nah, it was just a silly thought. Yeah, it was a question that wasn't stupid, I guess, like I said earlier. All right, thanks, Greg. Kaiser MLG. Any other questions or comments for tonight's net? Go ahead. All right, hearing none. We had a full page of check-ins. I appreciate everybody checking in. It's always fun. Ron, thanks for taking over the first week spot. George, probably I need to talk with Kyle and see about that fourth week spot. You guys might just alternate back and forth together, but I'll look your email up on QRZ. Is it good there?
Yes, it is, and I think you had a double when you started.
All right, doubling station, go.
W1VAN, just check in.
All right. Good evening, Ivan. Thanks for checking in. All right, George, I'll coordinate with you and Joe and Kyle and see what Kyle wants to do. If he wants to just kind of give it up for a while, let you do it. Ron, I'll put you in the first week because I know Bob's busy on Mondays. That's just the way it is with his new responsibilities. So that's what we'll do there. N0YB Larry, are you still around?
I am. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, your audio's a little bit low. WW8L, Tim, are you around?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, I'll tell you what, guys, if there's no other comments or questions, I'm going to go ahead and close the net. We've got, 20-something people here that checked in. A lot of good information. A lot of fun was had. And think about being an alternate net control for when some of us are not available. I'm going to close the net and return the repeater to normal use.
This presentation was brought to you by the Northern Colorado Amateur Radio Club. For more information, visit our website, ncarc.net. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.